Hi there, I'm Andrew, you're watching ThatGamerAjax, and for today's video I wanted to do something a little bit different than what I've normally done on the channel, and I wanted to talk a little bit of first impressions. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Emberwind. This is another tabletop role-playing game. This one's developed by Nomnivore Games. I have had my eyes on this game for quite a while, and I wanted to just give my overall first impressions now that I've run through a session 0 and a little bit of a combat tutorial with the current players that I have at my table before we run through our first campaign with this game. So Emberwind would actually be rather familiar for people that have played Dungeons & Dragons before. This is a d20 system. You just roll your d20 and that determines on whether or not you succeed or not. Now, what this game does a little bit differently is that rather than rolling high, you know, with Dungeons & Dragons, the nat 20 is the best thing that you can get, the nat 1 is the worst. This is kind of swapped. So if you roll low, you actually will succeed better. And what I really want to say about this game is that it is very, very combat oriented. All of the class actions that you get between the different classes that are available in this game, they are all combat geared. That being said, there are a lot of devastating combos that you can pull off just with your own class, and of course when you're playing with others. In the combat tutorial that I ran for my players, I set up something that there was a grand total of enemies that had 130 health, and these were essentially first level heroes. They were able to still dispatch those with ease without anybody going down. So I feel like there is going to be a lot that is in favor of players for this game. There are a lot of interesting aspects to combat in this game as well, because it focuses on combos and it focuses more on tactics than it does in the role-playing systems itself. You are able to swap out one of your class actions after every combat encounter. You get all your health back, everything resets back down to 0. So you don't have to worry about, tracking spell slots. You don't have to worry about any of short rest traits or anything like that. In this sense, the game seems like it is very, very streamlined. Personally, I think this would also be a good game for brand new tabletop players. If you have a little bit more of an experience with video games, for example, this might be a tabletop that you can kind of ease yourself into it. The rules seem relatively easy, and I have to say that given the people that I play with, we all have probably, a few years experience playing tabletop games. Character creation was an absolute breeze. I think that the longest it took us to set up was maybe 20 minutes for a brand new character, and that was, going page by page and looking at the aspect system of this. And what I mean by that is that when you are making your character, you choose certain aspects that you want that will affect some of your stats, such as raising your critical chance. So instead of rolling a 1, if you roll a 2, you'll get a critical strike. It makes it just that way you have that little bit extra chance to it. Makes you think like a little bit more video gamey in that sense. What is really cool about the aspect system, though, is that when you choose your character's occupation, it also affects some of your other stats, such as your sleight of hand or your ability to speak to other people. Now, I feel like this game is kind of lacking in some of those extra role-playing elements that D&D has, because all the class actions are focused primarily on combat. It's going to be really up to you as a player to be able to kind of flesh out those role-play moments. And I can say that I have read through the campaign book that I'm going to be running with my guys, and it's going to be very streamlined. It is going to be very, very narrow. Now, there are still going to be decisions that need to be made. The group is going to have to discuss amongst themselves on how they want to proceed, and I think there are a grand total of about 4 endings. There are some unique mechanics to this game. I know that what I've told them about is for the campaign that we're going to be running, there is a campaign clock. So certain decisions are going to make it so that way it adds or subtracts from that clock, and depending on if it takes them too long to do something major could happen that could even derail the entire campaign as a whole. Now, I do feel that this is a game that if you wanted to homebrew a campaign for it, it would work in the short term. There are currently only 4 tiers of play. Tier 1 would be, your low-level adventures, and the campaign that I'm going to be running through with my group is a Tier 2 adventure. But with there being relatively limited abilities, I feel like once you kind of get into the groove with your character's combos that you're not going to want to experiment much, and I feel like the experience might be able to stagnate a little bit after that, so you'd have to really try to come up with new ways to make things engaging for your players. That being said, I feel that as somebody that's going to be running this from a storyteller instead of a dungeon master perspective in this case, this game is an absolute breeze to run. Just with the basic combat tutorial that I ran for my players, it was some of the easiest DMing that I have ever done before. This game uses an AI system for its enemies. What's really neat about it is that rather than you having to control an enemy and track a whole bunch of things, all you have to do is just roll a d6 and the die just determines what happens from there. Each enemy has a set pattern on how it's going to move. As an example, I threw out this almost kind of stone golem, and it always goes after the enemy or the hero that has the highest defensive rating. It will ignore the squishier targets until that person goes down, and then it will proceed to move on to the next person with the highest armor rating. So because of this, they are going to be a little bit more like tunnel visioned, and then the party can start to play around that. You roll the d6, it just determines, does this thing move, does it attack, what does it do? So really, there's not a whole lot that you have to do in that case. And as the storyteller in this case, you don't even have to roll. Everything is up to your players. They will need to make certain checks, and if they roll at the number that's associated with it or lower, they succeed. If they don't, they fail. They'll take damage. I am really looking forward to exploring the system a little bit more, and I'll be sure to report on this in the future once we wrap up the campaign. And I'm also looking forward to kind of discussing some of the different classes and how they all function. This is going to be a game that I feel is going to be great for new players, and it's going to be awesome in the short term, but I do have a few concerns in terms of how engaging it's going to be for roleplay. I know that with my personal group, we do like to get into those kind of heavy roleplay moments, and with the way that this campaign is written, I don't think we're going to necessarily get that experience, but that might be something that I'm going to be exploring at a little bit of a later date. So let's go ahead and get a little bit of a conversation going in the comments below. Have you guys ever heard of Emberwind, and is this a game that you might even be interested in trying? So comment below, let me know, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing it. I'd really appreciate the support. But until next time, see you then. Bye.